I'm Shane Morris. Thanks for listening to the BreakPoint Podcast. What do you have that can bless your community in a time of crisis? For Josh Imhoff, director of YWAM Emerge in Colorado Springs, the answer was lettuce. As in 2,700 heads of lettuce that he and the ministry could no longer sell due to the coronavirus pandemic. So Josh and his team felt called to give them away. Today on the BreakPoint Podcast, Josh tells Colson Center President John Stonestreet how he came to that decision, how he and his team pulled it off in a matter of days, and the community's overwhelming response. It's an amazing story and a marvelous example of the church being the church, of the church running into the plague in times such as these. Here are John Stonestreet and Josh Imhoff.
Welcome to the BreakPoint Podcast. This has been a week where we've talked about Christians responding to the coronavirus. So on Monday, and if you missed this, you got to go back and listen to it, Dr. Glenn Sunshine, one of the Colson Center's oldest friends, great church historian, he just spent the whole podcast episode talking about how Christians have responded to plagues throughout history. We're not the first group of Christians that have been through this. In fact, many historians will point and say, look, the way Christians responded to those plagues is what explains some of the explosive growth in the church that you saw in kind of the subsequent centuries. And these are really important things to know. But here we are, and I wanted to pivot today to talk about what Christians have done in history, to talk about, is there something happening here? And over the weekend, I was just completely floored, blown away, to really learn more of the details of not only something that's happening today, it's happening almost literally in my backyard in Colorado Springs. Not only that, but in a neighborhood of Colorado Springs that I could almost hit with a rock. In fact, probably back in high school I could have, but I couldn't today because I threw out my shoulder. But it's an amazing story, and believe it or not, it has to do with lettuce. And I'm inviting here a friend of mine, Josh Imhoff, who's the founder and director of something called YWAM Emerge. You might know YWAM, Youth with a Mission bases all over the world. There's a kind of mission work happening in Black Forest, which is kind of a northern suburb of Colorado Springs, and what's called YWAM Emerge. Josh, thanks for, you're busy right now. A lot of stuff's going on. I'm glad that you popped over here so we can have this conversation.
Yeah, it's been a little crazy what has happened in the last week. If you would have told me we'd be where we are a week and a half ago, I would have never believed you.
Well, that's why I'm so excited about this, because we're like talking in the midst of the chaos, right? Like, and this is sometimes how you know God's working. Like, it's so crazy. It's kind of that classic line from Henry Blackaby, "What's God doing? Just jump on board." But it's crazy in the middle of it, and you're literally in the middle of it.
Yeah, it was a Saturday last week. We went into the greenhouse because we had just found out we were going to lose all of our contracts.
All right, we got to back up here before we jump into it. Saturday last week is when this pivot happened, right? Okay, so before we get there, though, tell people about YWAM Emerge. It's one of the coolest things that I know that YWAM's doing. And go ahead and give us the big picture of what you've been doing for 6 years now, right?
We started looking at ways to help the world and feed the world and get them sustainable. So when we saw the crash happen, we saw a lot of orphanages, widows' homes actually stop getting funding and missions worldwide. So we said, how could we start something that could actually help those communities start businesses, start things that they could actually grow their own food? So we started working on aquaponics. Didn't know anything about it.
This is what's so cool, aquaponics. Now, I think a lot of our listeners will go, no way, the fish. And But some people may not know that. What's aquaponics?
It's aquaculture and hydroponics. So the aquaculture is the fish side. The hydroponic side is the plant side. And you combine those to create aquaculture. And aquaculture is the fish waste actually fertilizes all of the plants. And so there's bacteria and there's all kinds of science involved. But we started building these and learning how to build them the best that we could learn how. And we have some amazing doctors that have actually helped us. My uncle's one of the number one fish doctors in the U.S. So we started plugging into the communities that we had, learned how to build aquaponics, and we've built aquaponics in about 15 countries for orphanages. My wife and I just built one in our whole family in South Africa a year and a half ago. And for 2 orphanages, we went out there. And so we started building these to create sustainability for kids, for orphanages, for widows' homes, for ministries, church planners. We actually were in Central Asia where we're teaching church planners and pastors how to be sustainable. They're building their own aquaponic systems, and they're feeding their families, and they're supporting their churches that they're planting through.
This is amazing. This is kind of one of the amazing turns that missions has taken over the last 30, 40 years of business's mission, also kind of the difference between giving handouts and also teaching people in a sustainable sort of way to take care of themselves. And there's a dignity to that because of who God's made them in his image.
Yeah, we've seen just incredible stories I could tell you of pastors and church planters and orphanages where we've gone in, helped them become sustainable, and the dignity that they get from actually making their own money and supporting the church and actually planting the church. And the government actually leaves them alone now because they're actually working and paying taxes and part of the community. They're pillars in their communities. So now we're seeing, especially in closed countries, we're seeing this actually really take off to start these.
I mean, this is just amazing. And folks are listening and they are familiar with the when helping hurts sort of model. Like, let's not do missions the way we used to do. That creates kind of a dependence and things like that, but really kind of blesses and recognizes the dignity of people on the ground. It's an amazing thing. You're doing this around the world. You've been doing it for 6 years. The up-ramp of your organization, I've been watching. It's so cool. How many countries have you trained?
We've trained in lots of countries. We have people that fly in from around the world to our place in Black Forest to get trained. We've built in probably, it's anywhere between 15 to 20 countries right now that we've built in. And now what we've been ramping up for is a reproducible model that we could just send anywhere in the world. We're writing workbooks. We're putting all the steps together, how to actually the build manual, the operations manual.
And it creates jobs. It creates food.
Yep.
And your big thing in Colorado Springs is
we have a huge aquaponics system.
And with lettuce, right?
With lots of lettuce. we have 24,000 heads of lettuce growing in our greenhouse right now. And we produce about 2,700 a week. And in about 8 weeks, it'll be closer to 3,500 heads a week.
So just to be clear, you're not growing this just to give away. This is a sustainable model that you're enacting at your own location and have up until very recently sold it to local restaurants, the local college.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of clients. I mean,
Yes.
It was basically this great sustainable, just like the hydroponic system itself. It's a financial model that's sustainable. And you were able to, create excess, also bless the poor, but also do it in a sustainable way. Super, super cool. And then the coronavirus hits and everyone's going, restaurants are closed. The college sent everyone home after spring break.
Right.
So you lost how much?
We lost everything. Right now we went from selling about 2,500 heads a week to 50 heads a week.
That's serious.
Yeah. When we did it here and we did it more commercially, we really wanted to prove that you could be sustainable, at least partially sustainable. I mean, we still have to raise money and do all that, but this covered a lot of our operational costs. And we were just trying to show people it really did work and the business side and how to manage a business. And so we could teach these pastors in other countries.
Community, man. I've eaten at the restaurants where your lettuce is. It's money.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
And we wanted to create a great solution for really good. It's not organic, but it's grown organically. It's some of the best lettuce you can buy. If you add any chemicals, it kills the fish, so then there's no more fertilizer. So we can't add chemicals. It's some of the best produce you can purchase.
I don't even like vegetables, or I like your lettuce. So there you go. All right, so you lose, I don't know what 2,500 to 50 heads would be, but I'm not good at math, but you lose.
We lost a lot of money.
A lot of money, and a lot of monthly money.
Yeah.
And yet, at the same time, you can't just shut down because A, you've got people that work for you. You've created jobs. B, it takes, what's the life cycle of these things?
It's a 9-week growth cycle. So if we don't plant.
So 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, people are starting to go back to restaurants. Your clients come back. You don't have anything to give them.
Exactly.
You got to keep growing.
Yeah. So I went in Saturday.
Let's be clear. Like Saturday, like a week and 2 days ago.
Yes.
Saturday. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I went in Saturday and I went in to cry and give up.
Hey, I appreciate that vulnerability.
So that's what I was really going in to do. And I went in to pray and ask the Lord, what do we do now? Because you just find out you go from selling almost all of your lettuce to 50 heads, and we're going to have 2,700 heads of lettuce left over. And so what do you do with that? And so I went in there and I just began to ask the Lord, what do we do? And I really had this strong feeling that we were just supposed to give it away to the community, that we'd been blessing other countries. And something just came over me and it said, it's time to bless Colorado Springs and bring hope and turn this thing that seems bad into something good, and that will create a blessing and it's not a curse.
What made this thing so stunning when you and I talked about it a couple days ago, and why I wanted everyone to hear this conversation is, if you don't know about Colorado Springs, it is a home for a whole lot of organizations whose attention is everywhere but Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
I mean, compassion. And I'm not an ACSI and Focus. And the Colson Center, I mean, it's become a hub of Christian nonprofits. And this isn't bad.
No.
But I remember years ago when we first moved here, Ken Myers from Mars Hill, the Mars Hill Audio Journal, came in to speak at an event, and he said something about this being kind of like the UN, right? The Christian UN, where everyone's caring about everywhere around the world, not sweeping the front porch of their own backyard. And it's always been something that struck me. And it doesn't mean we stop working around the world. But you found yourself in a place where people aren't traveling. You can't fly people in to learn from you right now.
No.
You're not selling your own stuff. You can't fund for people to come in and out and learn all this stuff. I mean, you were literally at a standstill, and here this opportunity is, you got a backyard.
Yeah. And, it's like, that's what I say is Exodus, where Moses is crying out to God in Exodus 4, and he says, what do you have in your hand? I think it's Exodus 2:4, but he says, what do you have in your hand? And he had a staff. And I just looked at what we had in our hand, and we had lettuce.
a lot of lettuce, no rabbits.
Right. Yeah, we had a lot of lettuce. And I was going, okay, this is what we have. So how do we change our city and bless our city? And we didn't actually know how to pull it off. I mean, so then that happened on Saturday. I prayed about it more Sunday. I brought it to our staff meeting on Monday. So that's a week ago today. And our staff meeting, I said, what do you guys think about blessing the city with all this lettuce and just putting the word out there? And they said, sure, whatever, let's go for it. And we prayed a bunch and called pastors in the city. And we didn't get a single no from anyone because they were all trying to figure out, how do we bless our city in this time? Because they can't go to church. You can't do any kind of gatherings. And so all the churches were like, yeah, we're behind you. We don't know how to help, but we're behind you. And so we just started looking at, okay, how would we give it away? So it was just craziness for the next 3 days. We made a video. The video kind of went crazy and shot everywhere, and people were talking about it. And then Fox heard about it, and they came out and did a special on us. But in the process, we had to figure out how to give it away. How do we set it up?
Right, because you have people concerned about the spread of the virus. You need to be concerned. It's not going to be great for you guys to become now an epicenter of the virus.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure you got those emails.
Yeah, and we were looking at all of our USDA certifications, and I was just talking to a friend that's a lawyer, and I've just seen God do so much in the last week. It is still so overwhelming. And I was talking to a lawyer. I'm like, do you think we have some issues? Should we not do this? And he said, first of all, if God said do it, we got to do it. And then we got to then try to figure out how to mitigate whatever there could be. And then he said, do you have any certifications? And we had just gotten USDA certified. I think 5 months ago, we got all of the certifications finished. And our lawyer said, if you hadn't gotten USDA certified, I'd told you to shut down. And he said, do you know that the Lord has been preparing this for you to be in a place to actually bless your community? And that was something that I hadn't even thought about. He goes, now that you have USDA certification, he goes, now you don't have any problems with selling to people, giving away stuff, because you have the highest certification you can get for handling food. And I just have seen the Lord, through us being obedient, living our little lives, growing lettuce, training people around the world. But then in an instant, I think that's the piece that we saw God do, is in an instant when I wanted to freak out. I wanted to quit. I wanted to stop. But we just heard this, don't stop and give everything away. And on Friday, let
me review everybody with the timeline here. So Saturday, you get a notion, you need to do something. Sunday, you're praying about it. Monday, you take it to the staff. You decide to go forward. Then you got to call lawyers.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So you're making this decision on Tuesday, Wednesday, finally?
Yeah. So Wednesday, we're doing it.
And that's where I first saw it, because I saw your smiling mug on a YouTube or a Facebook video, and it went wide, and it was for Friday.
Yeah.
1 to 3. Let me jump in and say, Josh and I hadn't talked about this, but at 3 o'clock on Friday, I decided, because he lives, a stone's throw from me, I was going to drive through, grab a couple lettuce, give a donation, and just thank him for what he's doing and all that sort of stuff. I show up, and there's already signs saying we've given it all away. And you thought you were going to go from about 1 to 6.
Yes.
And just hoping you could give out 2 by 2, 2,700 things of lettuce.
Right.
So,
and we had a blizzard Thursday.
That's right. No, let's be clear on this. It's 60 degrees on Wednesday. Thursday, where we live, 8 inches, 9 inches of snow. It's blowing. It's cold. And Friday wasn't beautiful. It was fog kind of set in.
Yeah.
What happened?
And so we were scared no one was going to come because we just got 9 inches of snow. And we had just had 9 inches of snow. We sent out the video that Wednesday, snow all day Thursday, and then Friday we're going, how do we actually pull this off? I was actually freaking out thinking we should cancel because there was so much snow. We got it plowed. We couldn't get salt melt down, and there was ice melt down. We couldn't get all that done before they got there. I called too late. And so we got it plowed, though, so it was somewhat okay to drive on. And then I was like, we'll see if anyone comes. We made the pitch from 1 to 6. We got through harvesting the lettuce at about 12:15. And so I was walking up to the house from the greenhouse, and I see a line of cars at our gate blocking Shoup Road, which we live off of.
It's the main road that, we drive
So they're just all lined up, and there's all these other cars trying to get by them. And they weren't supposed to be there for another 45 minutes. I was like, I guess people are going to come. And so we went up to the gate. We opened the gate. We had nothing prepped yet. And so we were just trying to hustle and get everything done. And then we started having car after car after car come down the driveway. We had probably 400 or 500 cars come down the driveway. And we made all these signs that said, "Costs, we love you." And we made signs that said, "If you need prayer, let us know. We'll pray for you." And we just saw at 12:15 to about 2, we just had a line of cars all the way out our driveway and going around our drive. There was probably 150 cars in our little driveway going around and trying to get out of our property. And then we realized we didn't have everything planned all the well.
And if you've never been on this property, it's a really long driveway. There's a really long kind of view. I mean, it's not like, just like a small little driveway. I mean, this was an overwhelming response.
4 times a year, the Colson Center holds short courses on various topics with outstanding presenters. Our next short course, entitled Responding to Culture's Brokenness, will take place every Tuesday evening beginning next week with Ed Stetzer on how churches, much like Josh Imhoff and YWAM Emerge, are responding to the coronavirus pandemic. Each short course is recorded, so if you can't make it on a particular Tuesday, we'll send you a link to the presentation. Come to breakpoint.org for more information and to register. Now back to John Stonestreet and Josh Imhoff.
There's a whole backstory here, too, that, building a big greenhouse in a somewhat, not crowded neighborhood, but in a pretty nice neighborhood, you didn't always have the best, response from the neighbors.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things that really changed Friday.
Yeah, that we had neighbors driving down the driveway and other people driving down the driveway. And they were just crying as they came down and said, "Thank you for bringing us hope."
How many times did you hear that?
I couldn't count it. It was dozens and dozens of times.
I think when you and I were talking about this Saturday night, I was a little, you kind of sense there's fear and there's anxiety. But I guess at some level, maybe we underestimate just how scared a whole lot of people are.
Yeah, there's no question I would have elderly people driving in. And they had their masks on, and you could just see the fear in their eyes. And we would just say, "We love you guys. Thank you for coming." And you would just see they're about to start crying. I mean, you could just see it on their face. And we wouldn't touch them, and we'd just set the bags of lettuce, and we're all wearing gloves and hand sanitizer and everything that we could do. And so we would set the bags of lettuce, and you could just see the joy that they were getting something they knew that they weren't going to get sick from getting. And you could just see that I think they were finding something. And just lettuce, we were handing them lettuce, and they were seeing Jesus almost. It was so practical, but yet it was just touching people's lives. And it just blew me away. I never thought that our greenhouse here in Colorado, in Black Forest, would be something that we could use to bring the gospel to our community and have people drive on willingly to have signs that are saying, "We love you, we're praying for you if you need anything." And then as we're handing it to them, telling them, "God bless you, we're behind you, we're praying for you." And they're driving away so excited that they just got good produce, but also because now they have a little bit of hope in this time of what's going on? And we had people that were driving nice cars coming through. And our whole goal when we started was there's people out there that just lost their jobs. There's people that aren't going to have any money. There's small business owners. And so it's not just for the poor, but it's for the people that are scared to death of how they're going to pay the bills next month or this month in 2 weeks. And so it was just this time of seeing people drive through just thanking us over and over for doing this for the community. And like you said, our whole ministry is based on other places. And I got so many calls on Saturday from community leaders that said, thank you for blessing our city. Thank you for pouring out to our city and giving this to our city. Thank you for giving it to the people in our community that are hurting. And they don't know what's going to happen next. And so it was just this overwhelming sense of seeing God do amazing stuff through a head of lettuce, which is just insane to me.
My guest is Josh Imhoff. He's the founder and director of YWAM Emerge. You can find out more about these guys at YWAMemerge.org. That's YWAMEmerge.org. Josh, part of the conversation that you and I have had for a long time and kind of our mutual admiration for a guy named Darrell Miller and kind of the stuff that he has done to really talk about the the phrase we use is the deprofessionalization of ministry. In other words, not that it's less good, but that it's less exclusive. This idea that only ministers and pastors are the ones who do the work of the ministry, and that really what their job is to equip, and that everyday Christians everywhere do the work of the ministry. And I know that as you and I were talking about this, and you were telling me this amazing story about just how great, and just overwhelmed you were and unexpected, that this is really part of that story for you as well.
Yeah.
You've been a pastor, you've been a missionary, and there's some big moments in your life where you realized that at some level you had kind of bought into the sacred secular split, right?
Yep.
That's sacred jobs. But one of the reasons I wanted you to come on is that, look, you're still a nonprofit, you're still a ministry in this, but you're working across these lines, you're bringing dignity around the world, and now you have this opportunity to bless your city, and it's simple,
Yep.
It's not like it took a whole lot of planning. Maybe you need to do more planning before next week.
Yes.
But it's not but I think there's a lot of people that are looking to the church, and the church right now is going, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to serve the community. And there's a big message. Not only do you want to bless Colorado Springs with this story, but you want this story to encourage Christians to do what?
Yeah, it was funny because we were talking about it this morning, and I said we have to stick with the take one head of lettuce. So we're telling people to take a bag of lettuce and give away a bag of lettuce to somebody you know and need. And I just realized that's how simple it is for us to be the hands and feet of Jesus. Is anyone can come get a bag of lettuce from us and take another one, and that they know someone just lost their job. They could take it to them and said, hey, these guys wanted to give you guys lettuce, and we wanted to be a part of that for this. And we make it so hard sometimes to preach the gospel, or we think we have to do it a certain way. And Darrell Miller's a good friend, and he's taught me a ton of how do we not separate everything? How do we actually put these things together and say that your life is your ministry? Everywhere you're going, if you're going to the grocery store, if you're going, whatever you're doing. Right now we're not doing a lot, but this was something that was so simple for us. And now I look at it and I see it's simple. I never would have thought of this until this happened, and we really got led to go in this direction. But just that we as the body of Christ are called to go out and bring the gospel, whoever you are. It's not the full-time ministry. It's not the pastor. It's not the missions guy. It's not all these different titles you can give people, but it's all of our job. And if we can actually see that it's all of our job, and then we just start practically loving people. When I look at this, all we did was say we're going to love people. And from that, we've seen now people going out and loving other people. So now we're seeing people grab a head of lettuce and going and giving it to somebody else and say, here, this is for you, and in Jesus' name. I mean, it sounds so
simple.
It's so simple, and you're just going, how did this even work? But It was just God is doing it. And I think that's the key is we look at all these people and we think we have to do it a certain way. And I would go back to what's in your hand. What do you have right now in your hand that you could use to love somebody? And it's not fancy. It's not cool a lot of times. It's not like the guys that you see on TV or the pastors up front or all these other things. It's really what do you have and how do you just walk it out every day?
Yeah. And, we don't know what the next 6 weeks are going to be. And you'll find yourself pivoting back to training people around the world and that sort of stuff. But it's kind of in that don't let a crisis go to waste sort of thing, right? And don't let the resources you have in your hands be quarantined.
Right.
How can we actually do that? And I don't think that looks the same for everybody. We've been wrestling on our BreakPoint commentaries about, okay, this is what they did when, they didn't know about how viruses transmit and there were no other hospitals. Christians were the only hospitals there were. Now we have it. So what does it look like for us to, quote unquote, run into the plague? And you're doing it with an awful lot of hand sanitizer and USDA approved methods of handling food. And that's great. But it's such an inspiring thing. Sometimes we look at what we can't do instead of looking at what we can do.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I just have to say that I give all of this, we didn't come up with. We weren't really creative. None of this was a thought process of how do we actually reach our community. It really was just a simple phrase that we just felt like the Lord was impressing upon us was give it away. And we just took the next step. And then we took another step, and then we took another step. And then we had hundreds of cars coming down our driveway and people crying on our street and thanking us. And all that happened within less than a week.
And it's week 1.
Yeah.
And you're going to do it again this Friday.
Yes. We're doing
some version of it.
Yeah.
Right?
It'll probably be a lot better.
Be a little more efficient.
And it'll be a little bit organized.
Yeah.
But it was just really, what did we have? And step out in faith and trust the Lord. Because we still don't know how we're going to make up that difference. I know that God's going to take care of us. But I have so much faith now. I decided this morning we're going to build out another system, and we're just going to build it, and we're going to have more produce to give away.
Wow.
Because we said we have to do this because there's such a need right now. And so I think in about 6 weeks we can have it up and running and giving produce to the community. So we'll have an extra 1,000 heads that we can have up and running. And our staff were like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, we just feel, and then we all prayed together this morning, and we said we have to do it. It's not a choice. Let's grow more stuff. So, because we don't know where we're going to be at in 6 weeks, 7 weeks. So if we step out in faith, then we're going to build this next system, and we are going to see more produce.
And listen, the story of YWAM Emerge and what you guys are doing to live this out isn't over. I mean, you're thinking, and I know because we had this conversation that maybe all this other stuff was just so you could bless your city. And maybe this time to bless your city is something that's going to kick you in the tail and make you expand capacity. And now your work is going to be able to reach more when things go back to quote-unquote normal. But who knows? I mean, that's what's great about this. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, and we have no clue, but it's trying to be really obedient to what we feel like the Lord's telling us to do and how to move forward.
Yeah. My guest today has been Josh Imhoff. To find out more about what the work that they're doing, go to YWAM Emerge. That's YWAM, EMERGE.org. And you guys are also on Facebook.
Yes, we're on Facebook, YWAM Emerge.
YWAM Emerge, and you can see the video, and you can hopefully see some footage this coming week of what's happening on Friday. Pray for these guys, and then as you think about it, it's like, what's your head of lettuce? That's a weird question, isn't it? I mean, what's God put in your hand, and what can He use right now? Wouldn't it be an amazing thing if this crisis was used to turn a lot of people to Jesus? I mean, that's really what it would be, mission accomplished in the middle of some really, really difficult times. Well, thanks for joining us today on the BreakPoint Podcast. Josh, it's exciting. We'll be praying for you and keeping our eye on the story. Thanks for coming by and talking to me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to the BreakPoint Podcast. Please learn more about YWAM Emerge at YWAMemerge.org. That's YWAM Emerge.org. And please remember to come to BreakPoint.org to register for our next short course, Responding to Culture's Brokenness. For the Colson Center, I'm Shane Morris.